R.I.P, we have 16,000 people watching us right now.
Okay.
I want to break it down for anyone that doesn't know.
Yeah. Again, just so you know, we just broke this story. Hulk Hogan died this morning at his home in Florida. EMTs were called to his house on a cardiac arrest call. They tried resuscitating him. They took him to a hospital where he was pronounced dead. I cannot overstate the significance of Hulk Hogan in professional wrestling, which is now one of the biggest entertainment sports in the world. And it is that on the back of Hulk Hogan. He transformed this. He transformed wrestling, which was, basically a bunch of guys going to watch, to a family sport where kids and women and husbands and wives came, and he was just supremely entertaining. And entertaining not just as a hero, but when he was a villain, he was actually even more popular when that happened in 1996 with the New World Order. He was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. He was stripped of that. He was inducted in 2005, stripped of that in 2015 after a sex tape involving Hulk and another woman was published by Gawker, and Hulk had made racist remarks on that tape. Hulk ended up suing Gawker and won, but it really cost him a lot based on what he had said. And he really showed contrition over a long period of time, and actually was reinducted into the Hall of Fame.
I don't feel ready to do this. I'm very emotional right now, and I don't want to be that guy that cries on YouTube or cries in his videos or anything like that. So I'm going to try to hold it together for you guys. But I saw it on my Facebook feed. One of the wrestling news sites had posted it, one of the less credible ones, but still one that I see regularly, and they're in the business, so they're not ones to just make up lies, but it's not like a Wrestling Observer or Fightful or anything. So I immediately went to Google and typed in Hulk Hogan's name, and yeah, it's all over the news. And Hulk Hogan dead of a cardiac arrest. And I know Hogan, a lot of people don't like Hulk Hogan, and for good reason. Hogan's had a very checkered past as of late, and I'm going to obviously address that, but this is for people my age. Younger people might not get it, and that's fine. But for people my age, Hulk Hogan is our childhood. Like, as early as I can remember, I was watching professional wrestling. I don't have any memory prior to wrestling. I don't have any moment I remember where an uncle or somebody's like, hey, check out this wrestling show. It was just always, right there with my Saturday morning cartoons, Wrestling Challenge or whatever it was at the time. And Hulk Hogan's always been there. And then up into my preteens, the NWO, Hogan reinvented the business again. This was, long after he had a huge run in WWE, the top babyface. He was never my favorite wrestler as a kid. I'm always kind of a counterculture, against the grain kind of guy to begin with. Savage was my guy, Macho Man. Ultimate Warrior was my guy. Hogan was the guy, but he wasn't necessarily my guy. But, obviously I grew up with him on my screen forever. And then into my preteens when the Attitude Era and the NWO era, he was front and center for that as well. And just, a permanent fixture, a permanent household name forever. And then after that, his return to WWE, and then his reality show, Hogan Knows Best, I watched. And then we started to hear some of the racist stuff. He did the sex tape, and that leaked, and he had some very racist comments there, and he's followed that up with some more racist comments that have leaked out. His phone call to his son in jail, and really awful, awful things that kind of showed that, there was racism in his heart. And so he very checkered. This isn't necessarily emotion for the human being of Terry Bollea, though it's never great when, it's always sad when people die, no matter what. And I think, he's tried to make peace with that in his life and was not necessarily able to overcome that. A lot of people still hate him. He was booed out of the building when he was in L.A. For his most recent last appearance now on any kind of wrestling television. He's been out promoting his new shoot wrestling show with Eric Bischoff. I can't imagine how Bischoff feels. Nobody's released anything yet. This TMZ clip that I played there at the beginning, they did an interview with Ric Flair, and I haven't really gotten into that yet. It just started when I hit record here, and it's still live, I think. Ric Flair, of course, was blubbering and crying all over the place, which didn't help my emotional stability coming into this video. That was my reaction when I saw Hogan die. I cried, man. Because that's your childhood. That's somebody you grew up with. That's somebody that's always been a part of my life. Not even as a fan, just as I don't know how you want to put it. He's not a hero or anything, but he's a fixture, and a fixture in the business that I've loved my entire life. And I guess I wasn't ready for Hulk Hogan to be dead. We didn't hear that he was having any health issues. We didn't hear, like if I were to wake up and hear that Ric Flair died or something like that. Or when Ozzy died, Ozzy had done videos saying, I'm dying. I don't have much time left. Hogan just came out of nowhere. He was promoting this new product. He had his beer out, doing lots of interviews, very lively. I'm not going to get into the political stuff too much. He came out at the Republican rally. I know there's lots of wrestling fans are very liberal, and anything that's Republican they hate, or, Trump or whatever. And, I don't get into all that shit. I don't care much. I'm not going to hold anybody's political affiliation against them one way or another. I think all that's kind of stupid, and I have seen a lot of shitty comments already. I don't know. I don't know that now's the right time to be, dancing on his grave and laughing at him and calling him racist and, all of that stuff. But that's certainly a huge part of his legacy, which is very sad. That has to be a part of his legacy, but you got to take it all in. But this fucking guy changed the wrestling business forever. Wrestling was the territory system. It was the dingy, dark arenas. Even up north, even in New York under Vince Jr., it was territories. It was the dingy, dark arenas. Even Madison Square Garden was dingy and dark. Then you had this guy who worked in Memphis and worked in Florida and moved up to Minnesota to work for Verne Gagne, which is where Hulkamania really started to run wild. And, for all the people that say, AEW uses nothing but ex-WWE stars, Vince McMahon Jr., when he bought the company from his dad, one of his first moves was to steal all of the top talent from everybody. And that included Verne Gagne, and that included Hulk Hogan. And boy, he strapped a rocket ship to Hulk Hogan like you wouldn't believe, man. He had him beat the Sheik in seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, if that. And he never looked back. Hogan was his guy from there. And Hogan ran for main evented 8 WrestleManias, 9, I guess, WrestleManias in a row if you count, coming back out and beating Yokozuna and winning the world title at the end of WrestleMania 9. It wasn't the booked main event, but he was, when the show went off the air, he was the guy holding the world title up in the air. So 9 WrestleManias. He was the last guy to hold the WWF Championship. When WWE switched over to WWE from WWF, Hulk Hogan was the world's champion. So, fun fact there. And then, as we all know, Vince kind of was ready to move on from Hulk and was ready to start pushing younger guys and wanted to kind of move Hulk down a little bit. And maybe thought Hulkamania had run its course as a babyface. And it had. Frankly, Vince was right. Vince is out right more often than not. Not in his dirty, creepy shit, but as far as the business of professional wrestling, he saw that maybe even a couple years before it was really a thing. Because remember, it was about WrestleMania 8. As story goes, they were talking about, is this going to be Hulk's last match in WWF? It wasn't, obviously, but that was because Vince was looking at moving Hulk down the card. He tried it at WrestleMania 6 with the Warrior, but Warrior wasn't the right guy to replace him. So it took a couple more years. But then Hogan went to WCW shortly after WrestleMania 9 and tried the babyface stuff over there. And when you first come in, you're going to get the initial pop of, Hulkamania's running wild in WCW. But then, it quickly grew stale because the red and the yellow brother, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, was just not working in this new era that was quickly becoming edgier and growing up and developing a little bit of an attitude problem, so to speak. And Hulk was able to begrudgingly, as the story goes, he was not ready to make that turn, but then he saw what the NWO was doing, what the outsiders, I should say, at the time were doing, and saw that was the bandwagon to jump on. And he did, and he changed the business again. This was before Stone Cold Steve Austin. The Austin 316 promo, I think, happened in, 96? Maybe it was 97. But Hulk Hogan had already been turned heel and joined the NWO, and it was the hottest fucking thing in wrestling. And if you didn't live through that, I know they've overplayed it to death, the Monday Night Wars documentaries and all that stuff. You've heard it from every which angle if you're a younger fan. But to live in that era, to be the guy flicking the channels back and forth, the flashback button on the remote, Monday Night Raw, Monday Nitro, Monday Night Raw, Monday Nitro. And it really was a ratings war because people criticize Vince Russo for his crash TV and always keeping the pace moving and doing wild stuff to keep your attention. But in that time, people look back at it and see a lot of silly stuff now, but in that time, people were sitting there with the remotes in their hand like me with the flashback button. And if WCW got boring, they were going to switch over to see what WWF was doing. If WWF was on commercial, they were going to switch over to WCW. That's why Bischoff would do things like going on early, staying late. Plus, they had the replay immediately after, like an hour after or something. So if you could stay up late and you wanted to, you could watch all of Raw and then watch the replay of Nitro. I mean, that was the Hogan. I cannot stress enough how big of a star Hulk Hogan was in his time. I know he's the old guy, and it's hard for me to put it in perspective because like a Bruno was before my time. So I didn't watch Bruno growing up. He wasn't my guy. He was the guy on commentary when I watched wrestling, same with like I'm blanking on his name. The guy that Hulk Hogan ripped everything off from. But those guys were a little bit before my time. Billy Graham, Jesus Christ, I don't know. My head's weird right now. Superstar Billy Graham, Bruno Sammartino, those guys were a little bit before my time, so I didn't care, didn't have the nostalgia. They didn't register with me. I didn't have an emotional connection to them at all. Even though they were on my TV, it's like they're past their prime. So a lot of people have those feelings about Hulk Hogan. So I can't stress enough just what he was to professional wrestling, what he meant to professional wrestling. He built the WWF. There's no question about it. He built the WWF, him and Vince together. It wasn't this thing now where you have all these different superstars and, it could be all. It was the Hulk Hogan show back then. Hogan must pose. Hogan ends every show. It was everybody. Hogan was the main event of every show. And, there was great supporting characters on the undercard, but it was Hulk Hogan's show. And he built the wrestling business that we have today. We might not have wrestling the way we have it if it were not for Hulk Hogan. And then to reinvigorate it in the 90s with the NWO, the mid 90s, like he this was before the Attitude Era, before DX, before Stone Cold really took off. He changed the business again. I don't know that there will ever be anybody in professional wrestling on the level of Hulk Hogan. You could say Stone Cold Steve Austin was maybe a bigger star, maybe sold more T-shirts or whatever, although, I think the Austin 316 and the NWO shirt are 1A and 1B as far as merch sales, right? But Austin burned bright and fast. He was in the business a long time, but he really wasn't peak. He was only peak for a couple years. Hogan was peak for decades. And even coming back to WWF after WCW closed to win another world title, to work with Undertaker again, to work with Triple H again, and work with Vince. Had that match with Vince at WrestleMania 19. The incredible match with The Rock at WrestleMania 18. This is one of the most iconic matches in WrestleMania history, and it happened very much at the very end of his career. Though he went on to do shit in TNA and, but as far as capable, I don't want to say prime Hulk Hogan, but capable Hulk Hogan, maybe to where John Cena is right now. Hogan came back and had that match with The Rock, and it was, one of the most famous matches in wrestling history again. It's sad that can't be his whole legacy. It's sad that part of his legacy is the racist bullshit. And I've been one of his biggest critics on here. I have not let that go myself. And that's because, there's people that let it go. And good. I'm glad you're able to move on and stuff. I just got in this argument in the comments. I like to troll people in comments and stuff. And I was going at it with a few people about Tessa Blanchard. Everybody's forgiven Tessa Blanchard and stuff, but there's a difference between saying the word casually or throwing it around or trying to be cool, or you said something stupid, or you're rapping along to NWA in your car or something. It's different. The things that he said were in his heart. There's no mistaking I was just, I just said something stupid. No, you didn't just say something stupid. You said your truth. And he's apologized a million times since, but most wrestlers that, especially, the black wrestlers will tell you that it wasn't really a good apology. He came backstage and after that happened to apologize to the locker room, and the gist of what came out of that is, as many people have reported now, New Day has talked about this, or, Big E at least, Mark Henry's talked about this, that Hulk's apology was, hey, you got to be careful what you say around people as a celebrity. Like, if it was more about, hey, don't get caught saying stupid shit, rather than, hey, I'm a big fucking racist asshole, I apologize for that, I need to do better. But he's moved on to find God. He remarried some hot young chick that's gonna be rolling in a lot of money right now that Hulk's gone, being his widow. Tragic stuff with his kids. We just, about a year ago, maybe a little bit more, Nick Hogan got arrested again for drunk driving. And this was after he had killed his best friend drunk driving in a sports car, speeding. Didn't kill him. He turned him into a vegetable, so he's basically dead. So there's a lot of dirt there in Hogan's past. A lot of wrestlers don't like him for his backstage politicking that had worked with him. If Hogan didn't approve of you, or that doesn't work for me, brother, that whole thing. He was part of the greatest wrestling storyline of all time ever, in my opinion, which was Sting versus the NWO. And that was to culminate at that match at Starrcade, and that match was botched because of Hogan's fuckery. So there's a giant checkered past with Hulk Hogan. Sorry, a little gnat, fruit fly fucking thing flying around. I hate that. You probably can't see it on camera, but it bugs me. I get distracted easy. Ooh, shiny object. So I guess I'll wrap it up here. We've covered Hogan's incredible career and all of his contributions to the wrestling business. A wrestling business that would just not be what it is today if it wasn't for Hulk Hogan. Period. End of story. Perhaps Vince could have made that work with the Macho Man, or perhaps he could have, gotten a little more mileage out of Andre the Giant as his top guy, or word was that he would have wanted to use Billy Graham, but Billy Graham was just a little bit past his prime that point, and not the same guy that he was in the 70s. So Hulk Hogan changed wrestling forever. The industry we get to enjoy as fans, it's the house that Hulk Hogan built, and nobody can deny that. It's impossible to deny him that. But again, you can't give him all of his flowers and credit for that without also acknowledging the darker side of the Hulkster. But man, this one hit me hard. I haven't cried over a wrestler very rarely. I remember crying when Macho Man died. I remember crying when Bobby the Brain Heenan died. But these are guys from my childhood. This is my childhood. And regardless of what you think of Hulk Hogan, regardless of the racist stuff, regardless of, I'm a big liberal and he's a Trump guy, so fuck him, there's a lot of those people out there too. Setting all that aside, Hulk Hogan is professional wrestling. He was the first guy to move into the acting world and cross those boundaries and be a full-on entertainment star. Others have gone on to do movies bigger and better than Hulk did, but he was the first to do them. He was the first. And Rocky 3 was a hell of a movie. One of, if not the best Rockies, in my opinion. Mr. T, Thunder Lips, the whole rock and wrestling thing. Hulk had his own cartoon. I mean, this is just an absolute icon. And I think it's shocking, too. I didn't have, and who cares about me, right? But I didn't have time to prepare for this one. You hear, like I said, you hear people aren't doing well. You see people being sick. He's got cancer. Or, he's, went to the hospital. Even Ric Flair's had so many brushes with death that it's like, and that was recent cancer diagnosis. It's like, yeah, this could come at any time. for Rick. Now, I'm not trying to put that out into the universe. I hope Rick still has many, many years left. But when it just comes out of nowhere, which cardiac arrest does. Maybe he knew. Maybe he was having issues that weren't made public. But as far as we know, Hulkamania was still running wild in its own way. Doing the beer thing. Doing the beer tours. Showing up on wrestling. Doing interviews all the time. Now promoting this wrestling show that I don't know. Obviously, I think the show is going to continue. The wrestling brand is going to continue. But taking Hulk Hogan out of that really is a kick in the balls of that whole wrestling product, too, that Bischoff's started with him. So, just surprising. Big kick in the balls and emotional, regardless of what you think of Hogan. It's just not something you want to pull up your phone and see on your feed. So I'll leave it there. I'm probably going to do what I did with Jay Briscoe. I did a video. I don't know how many of you have been with me that long here on YouTube, but back 2 years ago now, probably, I did a video kind of memorializing Jay Briscoe by, because what we do on this show, we're a clip show. I play clips from podcast interviews and then I react to them. Give my 2 cents and that. But for that one, I did a big, long, hour-long show of all the podcasts, because I imagine everybody's going to have something to say about this, obviously. I mean, everybody had something to say about fucking Goldberg bitching about his last match. People will certainly have a lot to say about Hogan, so I'm going to try to maybe wait a few days to a week, compile all those clips, and try to put together a nice little clip show of everybody remembering Hulk Hogan in their way. So until that video, keep an eye out for that. I hope you guys are doing well out there. I know this is going to hit a lot of you hard like it did me. And there's going to be people that are indifferent because Hogan, like I said with Bruno, it was just before your time and you're not that emotionally connected to the guy. And some people are going to be tap dancing on his grave because he's a Trumper or because he's racist or whatever. And I can't tell you not to. I'm a freedom of speech guy, so you're going to have your thoughts and opinions, negative or positive. But, if you are having a tough time with this, hang in there. There's other people with you. And rest in peace, man. As Bobby the Brain Heenan once said, Hulkamania is dead.
Let me tell you something, brother. Thanks for watching the video. Check out more great clips by hitting that subscribe button, dude. And while you're there, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to say your prayers and eat your vitamins, brother.